Day on the homestead, as you can see. I've got a little mini dead cat on my microphone. Hopefully audio is good. So, many of you asked me if I had watched the Andrew Tate Tucker Carlson interview. I had no intention of watching that whatsoever. Unlike many of you guys, I do not see Fox News as anything different than any of the other mainstream media. And, you know, I don't know if I trust any of those folks, to be honest with you. You know, Tucker Carlson is everyone's savior, but I know his background, and I believe he's got ties with the CIA or FBI or some nefarious group. I just think it's just a little bit strange. I don't know, man. I would be skeptical. They say the right things. They tell us what we want to hear, but I want to know what is behind it. I do not trust any of them. How can you be neck deep in Fox News for so many years and not be infected by it? However, because you guys recommended it to me, its entirety, and it's long, over 2 hours. Very compelling. You know, I have to say, you know, listening to what Andrew had to say and his experience, you know, he's saying all the right things, but I couldn't help but have to agree with a lot of it. I would recommend that you watch it. I think it's worth watching. I recommended it to the Warband. I think it's quite interesting. A lot of parallels I drew, kind of, I guess I felt a lot of, I don't know, I felt like I had some things in common with that. You know, the persecution, things that are happening to him, and what it is he stands for and why he's under attack is essentially the same thing that we're doing here. Promoting traditional values, promoting masculinity, and giving men, or trying to encourage or give men the balls to stand up for what you know to be right, and not just to be bowled over like the majority of people. Now that is a threat to the powers that be, and they don't like that, and I guess you have to look at his enemies. The fact that he has so many enemies, you know, that also is a feather in his cap. So I don't know. Time will tell. We will see. But I am skeptical about all these things. Man, we had an invasion. A bad invasion yesterday. My neighbor came over and said, man, you got a problem. Knapweed. Knapweed is taking over your field over here on my border. You need to do something about that. And we really did battle with that on the last property. I don't know what the scientific name of it is, but it is prolific, man. It spreads like crazy. And if you don't get on it quickly, it will take over your entire field. And I was shocked how quickly it sprung up. So my manservant Jariah and my son Jack, boy, they jumped on it, and they were all day yesterday digging and pulling knapweed. The only way you can do it is by hand. You can't mow it. And we were really under the gun, because if you do not get it before it flowers, then, well, it's off to the races, and it's like a wildfire. So shout out to Jack and Jariah for getting all that pulled out, and we'll see how that goes. We're going to have to stay on top of that. But once you get knapweed on your land, it is a constant struggle about it. You just always are going to have to deal with it, and it's hard to root it out. You know, the state will come and spray it happily for you, or the county, but they use some sort of a toxic, you know, they use Crossbow or Roundup. I don't want to have that anywhere near my property. That stuff is absolute AIDS. AIDS. What else is going on? Day 10 of the cold water dip. The Warband came over. We got an early start this morning. We started at 7. Oh, goodness, it was chilly. 49 degrees when I woke up. But I'll tell you, the last 3 days, I have had no reservations. I look forward to it so much. I wouldn't have believed that if you were to tell me a couple weeks ago. There'll come a point where you actually look forward to it, that's the highlight of your day, to go down there in that cold river. But it is true. And I can also tell you, from someone that took the cold showers for a long time, that the cold water immersion is tenfold better and easier than the cold shower. Shout out to you if you're still doing cold showers. I always found that to be very difficult, and I never really warmed up to it. It got easier, but it never got easy. Where this, I look forward to it. This morning, we had set a time, and we were visiting and chatting, and one of the Warband members propped his phone up there, and we're watching. I try not to look at it. It makes it worse. But we reached our time, and I said, let's add a minute on, and everyone agreed. And we added a minute on. So tomorrow, Friday, this will be like a full week of us doing it together. We're going to go for a long one, maybe even 10 minutes. Everyone's doing really good. One thing everyone complains about is how cold your hands get. I cannot stand having my hands in the water for very long, and neither can they. None of us can. So I'm trying to work on that. I bring them down for a few seconds and then back up. Boy, but my hands, they really do suffer. And I don't know why that is, because my feet don't seem to be a big problem. And usually when your core starts to be threatened by the cold, it starts to constrict the blood vessels and reserve the blood or the warmth into the core, and that's why your hands and fingers get numb. But always good. I'm really enjoying it. Been doing 2 a days. I think I'm going to go to 3 a days, and I have no doubt that pretty soon I think we'll be in there. Try to stay in there about 10 minutes or so. Really, really looking forward to that. Got some good news as well down here in the campsite. I think I told you we have a new wall tent coming, a white duck tent. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. It's a 14 by 16 traditional canvas wall tent, and I'm very excited to get this and to shoot some content and to share this with you guys, because I think it's a really good option for anyone that wants to have a little bit of a backup plan. If you live in the urban area, we've talked about maybe putting together a overland vehicle. You know, that's a good option in case you need to bug out, but it's not an option for everyone. But a wall tent could be. You know, as I said, my family lived in wall tents during the Depression for a long time, and they seem to get on pretty well with that. All right. What else was there? Something else I wanted to tell you guys. I can't remember. I got a call. Sorry, Mr. Overton. I'm sorry. I was supposed to call him yesterday, and we got tied up on the snapweed. I completely forgot about it. I'm going to call Mr. Overton right after the stream, and I think he's got some updates for me on the new drop for the Proho radio kit. I don't have anything else to share with you today, but I think he wanted to talk to me about that. Him and Evan have got some stuff for that, so I will get with him, and maybe we'll have something for you on Friday. Also, I'm going to be starting, and the Warband is going to be joining me tomorrow. We're going to be fasting, doing a 24-hour fast once a week. I don't know how long it's going to run. You know, last time we did it, many of you joined me. We did it for 4 weeks. We're kind of thinking, if we can, of incorporating this, that this is going to be something that we do going forward. So more on that. I'll let you know on that if you guys would like to join us. But there's a lot of health benefits to that. The Warband and I were also talking this morning about eating schedule. You know, the traditional American system, I guess, what I grew up with is 3 meals a day. You know, the word breakfast, if you think about it, if you break it down, it's break fast. Fasting, we know, is very beneficial to the body. It puts you a little bit of stress on your body. It's not unlike the stress that's put on your body with cold water. And I think it has benefits. I think it helps your metabolism. And if you're struggling with dropping some weight or just not feeling good or lethargic, I wonder, and again, I'm not giving health advice. I'm not a doctor. What do I know about it? But I can just give you anecdotal evidence that I've been doing very well with it. Dropped body fat, feeling strong, even putting on muscle, putting on a tremendous amount of muscle considering the limited work that I do. People have been asking, you know, are you taking steroids? Are you taking testosterone? No, I don't take any of that. I would never take any of that. I don't even know what it is. I don't know the difference. Anabolic test, I don't know. That's not something I want to get involved with. I understand that men are low on, especially American men, their testosterone levels are dropping. That's what we're told. I've never had a problem with that because I think I'm always, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I don't eat the soy or I try to eat clean diets. I don't know. I've just never really struggled with that. I think it's just getting out and doing honest work, being outside and getting your shoes off, eating clean food. But I wonder if this cold water doesn't contribute to that as well. But it's amazing. As far as, you know, people are asking, you know, do you go to the, I don't go to the gym or anything like that. I do, here's what I do. I get in the cold water and I do push-ups. And I do squats, but I don't do them with any weight, just my own weight. I stand on my toes, so because it works on my balance on my core, and I just go down to my thighs are horizontal until it, you know, and really slow up and down until I just can't do it anymore, just to failure. And those two things have been very helpful to me. with the cold water, and also eating a good diet. Nothing fancy, just staying away from processed foods, sugars, no sodas, just drinking pure water, eating high protein food, and that sort of thing. I found it to be very beneficial, and it doesn't really cost anything, and I'm geeked on it. I'm really happy about it. I'm going to be introducing one more exercise, and that's going to be, I'm going to put up a pull-up bar down here. That's something that I think if you could do 3 things that seem to kind of a well-rounded workout that's not overly complicated, hit the push-ups, hit a pull-up bar within reason, and if you could work up some sort of a squat, something like that. I've been pulling out my Crosscut Saws. You know, we're still unpacking from the move, and we got to the area at the Crosscut Saws, and I've got those laid out, and I'm going to be doing some content with that as well, and there's a couple of those I want to restore and get sharpened up, because I think that that's something I'd like to work into the routine as well, to get out. And I'm not going to cut all my firewood with Crosscut Saws, actually just a very little bit of it, but I would like to have, I've got some logs decked up here. I thought, you know, wouldn't be a bad thing to do for 15-20 minutes to get on the old misery whip and pull on that thing a little bit through the summer, and that's also going to be a great whole body workout, and I think some of the Warband members would want to join me on that as well. So everything within reason. You know, you don't have to get crazy with it. You know, I'm not a super fitness guy, but I also, at 54, I understand the importance of staying strong. At this age, you kind of reach a crossroads where you can make a decision to either get fat and lazy and sick and die, or you can or you can not. And there's no reason why you can't be in good shape with just a little bit of effort, seems to me anyway. We have a super chat from Mr. Dennis Mortberg. Shout out to you, Dennis. Welcome, brother. And Dennis writes, see there, Dennis writes, a tip to keep your hands warm, clench them into fists, and it might help. Maybe, I'll try it. I'm skeptical, but I will give it a try. Clench into fists, we will see. And we have a member message from Mr. Daniel Hetzler. Shout out to you, Daniel. Daniel's been with us for 4 months now. What does Daniel have to say? Five-year viewer, your kindness and inspiration have been crucial for me getting my life upgraded, finding Jesus, 31 years old, and feeling younger than ever. Yeah, I'll tell you, man. I'll tell you, I feel the same way. As I said, I'm 54. I really let myself go during COVID. Got back into drinking whiskey again, ate a bunch of really crummy food, sitting around inside, locked in, feeling sorry for myself, got to put a bunch of weight on. It was depressing. Everyone was depressed, right? It was terrible. But what has really saved me, I think been a huge factor, is the cold water immersion. Having that to look forward to and the accomplishment that comes from it. I'll tell you, man, I look at myself in the mirror sometimes and I think, who is this old man? I don't feel it. I've got aches and pains, and you know, I can't do things as well as I used to. It really dawned on me 4th of July, there's a difference between 54 and 24. I had not really felt the difference at all, to be honest with you. I still feel like a kid. I don't feel like an adult. But I was hanging up some pendants and some banners for 4th of July at the house, and crawled up on a step ladder. And it may have been the PTSD that I received from falling off my snow bike ramp and breaking my leg last winter, or whatever that was, that I am a lot more careful than I used to be up on heights. And normally I would just run right up a ladder. How many times have I stood on the top, not the top rung, but the very top of a 6-foot step ladder, and never thought twice about it? You know, now I'm like 3 treads up and I'm holding on, 3 points of contact. So, you know, you get a little bit more wobbly, just the way that it is. It's the cycle of life, but there's a whole lot more and a lot of good things to come. And you can cry about lost youth and lost athleticism and ability, but I don't look at it that way at all. I'm enjoying life now more than I ever had, and I'm looking forward to the future. And I love to be able to have the life experience to draw upon in conversation or in live streams, or it's just it's nice. It's good. You can find good whatever age you're in, so I'm told. But I think this is good. I think I'm happy, healthy, And Lord willing, we'll be feeling good and doing the same thing tomorrow. Take care of yourself, beloved. I did not take care of myself. Grew up in the trades, grew up in construction, eating garbage. I'm just absolutely shocked that I'm able to do what I am with the abuse that I put through my body in my younger years. I just didn't know better. Well, maybe I did. I was and I just didn't care. Didn't think it made a difference. We have a live chat from Spetched and Co. Shout out to you, who writes, would you be a wildland firefighter now if you could? I can. I could do that if I wanted to. Maybe if I choose to. I don't have any desire to do it right now. I like to stay plugged in to the community. I like to hear what's going on. It's going to be fun to hear Jack's experience and such. I keep my stuff sharp. I keep my tools and my pack ready because it's highly likely, and it happened just a couple years ago, that we might need to defend homes in the valley here. You know, I don't need to be affiliated with any organization to go in and help out my neighbors, help out my community. For goodness sake, I might have to save my own place. Who knows, right? That's why I keep my fields irrigated. But no, if I wanted to do it, I could do it. I could go get on the contract engine and go out on a fire, and I might. Maybe I will. Maybe I might even buy my own contract engine. That's a possibility as well. So, no, people think, oh, you're just bitter. You know, give it up. You can't do this anymore. That's not true. I can do anything I want to do. I do what I want. I do what I want. Thank you, brother. We have Chris, a super chat from Chris Cash. Shout out to you, Chris. Chris writes, as someone whose mother pushed my father out of both of our lives when I was young, your videos helped me a ton, and thanks a lot. Yeah, you know, people think that's so true. It makes me very angry how poorly fathers are treated. It really, really upsets me because that's not typically the case. What's more often the case with single mothers, you know, look at how single mothers are portrayed. Oh, they're virtuous. Oh, that bad man, that poor woman and that deadbeat dad. She spread her legs for that man. She chose him. Women control access to sex. Men control access to marriage, right? It just astonishes me, the lack of accountability with these women who will go and pick, and I'm not talking about the good ones, but we'll just talk about what's going on currently. We'll go and pick the Chad because he's handsome and 6 foot tall and all these things, and thinking she could lock him down, reaching way, way out of her league, and then cries about it. Oh, look at these bad men. And because of that one guy, she labels all the rest of us as being misogynist and of no good, no value. And they take zero accountability whatsoever. I'll tell you what, gentlemen, this is the truth right here. There's going to be a coming famine. It's going to manifest first in the cities, in the poorer parts of town. When people start rioting, when they start looting and burning down their grocery stores and any place that they would have access to food, there is literally going to be famines, and they're going to start in the inner cities. You've heard the term food deserts. If you haven't, a food desert is a problem that's taking place in cities where people that are living in there do not have access to quality food or a regular grocery store. Play me the little violin, right? Many of them are responsible for that, but not all of them. That's already been a problem that's been talked about for the last 2 decades. Well, when there's one last grocery store and there's nothing left and they go and loot and burn it down, where's the food going to come from? There's actually going to be famine. It's already starting to happen. When we're looking at repossessions, we're looking at student loan defaults. It is, we're at the tip of the iceberg. We're really at a tipping point. If you are a capable man that's got a home, that's a good provider, that's got the ability to take care of a woman, you're going to have your pick pretty soon, I'll tell you what. But be careful, because these snakes will come in. You don't want to bring a snake into your bosom. These snakes will come in there and lie to you and not be sincere. How do you ferret them out? How do you trust the good ones? Well, you have to look at their fruit. Do they have social media accounts? Are they posting pictures on the internet, on TikTok? Are they hoes? Are they 304? You just got to be careful with that. But things are about to change, and the haves are about to have, and it's going to be very interesting to see. You're also going to see something that's going to happen is you're going to see polygamy. You know, I never thought that I would see that in Western civilization outside of like our Mormon friends and such, but you're going to see polygamy. These women are not willing to settle, many of them, even though they have no food, no place to go, no car to drive, no job, because a lot of the jobs that they do are evaporating. They're jobs that are created in good times. You know, public relations, you know, middle management type of things. You know what they do. They're not doing welding, they're not doing carpentry, they're not doing, by and large, the things that really matter like men do. And then when companies have to tighten their belts and cut back, well, it's those jobs, and they're going to suffer more than anyone. It's going to be very interesting to see. Mr. Tony Seed, and thank you, Chris. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that and sharing that with me. Mr. Tony Seed, we have a super chat. He writes, Wim Hof has a short for cold hands and feet problems. Well, you should have told me what it was. What is it? He's got a lot of shorts. I haven't seen that. I'd like to know what that is. I'm hoping when what we're doing together is just continuing to expose them. So bring them down until they ache so bad they don't hurt, which takes, in this cold water, takes about 3 seconds, and then back up. You know, we're all sitting up there with our hands out of the water like that. So I'd like to know what that is, as I'd like to get to the point where I don't have to hold my hands out of the water and just, you know, keep them underneath. Goodness, we have a super chat from Mr. Andrew Collins. Thank you, brother. That was very generous of you. Andrew writes, what was said earlier about clenching in the cold is fully backed. Rescue swimmers use body-specific clenching to avoid general hypothermia. No reason why you couldn't go as specific as hands and feet. Yeah, I have read that before. That's very true. I hadn't considered that. When I was a career firefighter in Colorado, we had a giant lake or reservoir. We were high up 10,000 feet, Colorado. This reservoir was fed some of the water to Denver. And it's cold up there at 10,000 feet in the Rockies, and that would freeze over in the wintertime. And so we were trained in cold water rescue and how to deal with that, because every year folks would go out there on the ice and fall in and get in trouble, and it was our job to go out there and rescue them. The training was super fun, and I do remember that being part of it, but the training was super fun because we had a hovercraft, and I had never been in a hovercraft before. That was the first time I ever piloted one. And you have an idea, you know, hovercrafts are cool. When you see them, you think, man, it would be great to have a hovercraft. But they're not all that cool. They're actually quite boring. They're slow, lethargic, and they take forever to turn, and they don't handle very well. But it was the perfect machine for cold water rescue. We also had those bright orange, those super Gumby suits. You know, the ones that they have, I think maybe if you've been a commercial fisherman, that they have in reserve, where if your boat is going down, you put those things on, you're supposed to be able to survive, and they've got the beacon all on there, and they're super thick, super thick. I've got 5mm wetsuits, which are sufficient for surfing in the Pacific. That's what we used to use. But they're way thicker than that. They must be closer to 6 or 7. They've got the full hood and the feet and all of that. We used to have so much fun with those things. We would go, usually the ice wasn't frozen in the very center, you know, come December or so, and we would back up and put those suits on, and we would start running. Run as fast as you can, and then jump onto your stomach and do the slide into the water on those suits, and you could just go in there and just have a good old time and never even feel the water. But I don't know why I'm sharing that with you. Oh, the clinching. So I will try that. Tomorrow, I will share that little bit of information with the warband, and I'll tell them we will clinch our hands tightly and see if that makes a difference. It could. Yeah, it may just by eliminating surface area of all. There's a lot of surface area on your fingers. They're like fins on an engine, on an air-cooled engine, right? If you were to eliminate that and close them up, then there's a good chance that could work. Good advice. Okay. Anything else? We got something else? Oh, we got another one coming in here. We might be ending our live stream early today, which is just as well. I love being here, but I've got my Crosscut Saws out. Unfortunately, I'll share this with you. So the last time that I used and was sharpening and filing Crosscut Saws, it was over at a friend's house, our neighbors. Actually, it was Jariah's in-laws. And we had a really talented saw filer from the area that came out of the logging industry and really knew it well, an old guy, and was kind of putting on a clinic for us. And in the middle of that, I had to leave because I got a call out for a wildland fire. And so I left, and I was out on that fire for a long time. And I left my saws all there. Well, once the class was over, they put all the saws were all laid out on the concrete slab there, and I was fixing on going there and getting them. Well, it got cold, I guess, and no, what happened? No, it wasn't cold, it was summertime. Somehow a water line burst. I don't know how, and it flooded the whole barn where we were having the saw filing class, and got the saws kind of rusty. It's just a mild surface rust. It's not anything deep that's pitted. And a lot of those saws that I have that on there. So I'm keen. I've got them all laid out, and I was choosing which ones. I actually collected too many. I had a bunch of people send me some, and I'm really only interested in the Western saws. I'm not interested in East Coast man saw. It doesn't appeal to me, and it's just not appropriate it's just no good for the area. Western saws are far superior, and that's the saw of my people, right? So I'm selecting the best of the best. So I'll probably keep 2 felling saws. I've got Wanda, my Atkins that my granddad bought in Idaho in the 30s, which is an 8-foot felling, and I've got a couple of Royal Chinook buckings, and then I want to have a long felling and a short felling, and a long bucking and a short bucking, or a single buck, one-man buck. And I'm going to take those saws, and that's what I will keep for myself, and I will either donate, or pass on the other saws to other people, and I'll focus on that. And I'll have to restore those, sharpen those, and get those up to speed. I want those working tip-top shape, better than new. So I'm keen to get started on that. And thank you, Andrew. I really do appreciate that bit of advice. Mr. Jason Barr. Shout out to you. Welcome, brother. Jason writes, something that has been on my mind. A dancing girl in a bad oath had John the Baptist's head chopped off. Oh, yes. Yes. Do you know the story? Oh, man. What was her name? What was her name? It's on the tip of my tongue. That's very interesting. Interesting that you brought that up. Oh, what was her name? Oh, I revile myself that I've wasted so much time. I should have spent more time in the scriptures the last decade. Oh, the wind's going down. I'm getting hot. I got my Indian blanket here I was going to put on if it got cold. This one doesn't have any smallpox on it or AIDS, which I'm always appreciative of that. But I certainly don't need it now. It's getting hot. Oh, I love that story. That's something that I'm going to thank you for reminding me of that. I'm going to go back. What was her name? Goodness. And her mother. They had the Jezebel spirit, did they not? Okay, I'm going to go back and read that story as soon as I shut this thing down. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow, because that's a story that I hadn't thought about for very many years. And that is very appropriate to us today with the current state of the dating market and the women with the Jezebel spirit. Excellent, excellent. All right, Jason, thank you for that. I'm going to come back to that. We're going to revisit this. This is something that we need to talk about. We have a member message from Hammy. It's going to dawn on, I know this story like the back of my hand. It's one of my favorites. I got to stop. We have a member message from Hammy. What are your thoughts on the gray wolf population in Oregon? The folks at the ODF, which is the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, say there are very few, but I see tracks here and stories. They are, in my opinion, they are lying. And the reason why I say that is I had a member of our old church that actually worked for them. and knew exactly what was going on, and he told me so. And he was based. He was absolutely based, and he took the check, but he also knew what was going on. So we have a lot of cattle ranchers in this area, and everything to the north of us up on Fuji, that is all open range. Open range is cattle ranchers lease federal land, and the cows just range on it. No fences or anything like that. You see them all the time when you're up there dirt biking. I've ran into them and they run across the road. They put bells on them as well, so you can hear them walking around. And so they're always up there. So the ranchers have been having some problems with cattle being taken down and calves and such by these wolves. Well, for years, they knew it was happening because they could see the slaughter. And they would complain about it, and they would go to the ODF, and the ODF denied it. In my opinion, they lied about it. They said, no, we're not introducing these. They don't exist. This is your imagination. So there's that. Well, he told me that they're planting them, that they're intentionally putting them in there, and they're lying to the public. They're not telling anyone. This is what he told me. This was what his opinion was. In addition to that, I have another friend here in the valley who has firsthand knowledge because he hunts with dogs. His grandfather and his father, he still has dogs, same bloodline, and he's very good at what he does. And so he's a professional tracker, and he's tracked cougar and such. So what happens in this area? We have a lot of cougar. Can I tell you a cougar story before we start? Remind me, we get back to the point I was going to make. The Sweet Loaf and Mrs. W. This was last year. About half a mile up here to the west is a trail that runs along the river. It's popular with local people here. Scenic and nice and easy, good for kids. The Sweet Loaf and Mrs. W. were hiking on it. And all of a sudden, the Sweet Loaf said, "Look, Mama, a tiger." And right in front of the two of them was a mountain lion. You know, mountain lions, they can range, the adults, 80 pounds up to over 100 pounds, 125 pounds even. And they're dangerous. I have two friends that have had to fight for their lives in this area with mountain lions and had to fend off attacks. So they're no joke. The Sweet Loaf had never seen, she's 4 at the time, or maybe 5. She had never seen it before, and her only reference was tiger. So, look, Mama, a tiger. Well, Mrs. W, she always carries. When she saw it, she threw up her hands and just screamed. And I said, "What did Mama say?" And she said, "Well, she threw up her hands and went, wah!" And it ran off. It was not a problem, but they're around here, so you have to be careful. People, I laugh at people. "Oh, you don't need a gun. You don't know nothing. Don't tell me what I need. You incel living in your mama's basement telling me from the city what I should have and should not have out here when I live in the midst of super predators. Give me a break." What were we talking about? I forgot. I knew I was going to forget. Oh, the wolves. So my friend, who's a professional hunter, when they have a problem with cougars, mountain lions, they're bothering livestock, they're getting too close to people's homes, the state will contract him to go out, track them down, and tree them, and they'll either shoot or relocate them. I don't know what they do. But he's really good at it. He's 3rd generation. He's done it for a long time. He shows me pictures. He shows me pictures right up here, not far from here, of gray wolf tracks. He knows how to track animals. He's done it his entire life. He learned it from his grandfather. He's done it professionally. You can always tell a wolf track not only by the print of it, but it drags the leg. They have kind of a lope. So if you're looking in the snow, if you want to track, I'm not a super tracker, but my grandfather was. And he taught me how to track animals and how to read sign growing up with him and hunting and how to tell if something's fresh. And I don't, again, I'm not the expert at it, but I have a general knowledge of it. But I did not know this about the wolf because I'd never seen a gray wolf before until it was explained to me. So he was showing me pictures last year of what it looks like in the snow. And right up here, a piece of property we were looking at, a wolf went right through there. And you can tell by the feet, and it drags that leg. So there's a little drag in the snow, and that's always an indicator of gray wolf. So they're all over the place. So again, You know, the government is not your friend. I just have to assume, make the assumption that anything that they say is most likely dishonest or a lie or a deception in some way. I don't put any faith into it whatsoever. I think you would be better served if you were just to believe the opposite of whatever comes out of their mouths. You know, there will be no liars in the kingdom. So they'll give an account. You know, God will mete her justice according to his will. But does not the soul cry for justice? Does not the honest man long for it? We have a super chat from Back 40 Fab. Shout out to you, brother. Back 40 Fab says, me and my wife have been felling. We need to move from Canada. We have been feeling. See, I've got Crosscut Saws on my mind, and I read feeling is felling. I want to do some felling. My wife and I have been feeling we need to move from Canada, British Columbia, to the U.S. What are your thoughts? If you have the means, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. You know, it's highly likely that we'll be following not too far behind you, but the thing that we have different is the Second Amendment, and we have, you know, it remains to be seen what happens. I don't know. But I probably would. From what I hear, I don't have firsthand knowledge of what's going on up there with our Canadian friends, but it sounds bad. I get a lot of emails, and I have a lot of contacts all over the world. I get a lot of information from folks that share it with me that are on the ground there. And what I hear from is going on in Canada is very troubling. So if you could move, you know, into the west somewhere, you know, maybe northern Idaho and Montana, Wyoming, that area, it's going to be similar to what you're used to, because that area is so beautiful, so beautiful. What British Columbia is, but man, if that isn't God's country, I don't know what is. And nice people up there as well. I have not had a lot of experience with Canadians in the middle of Canada or over on the eastern provinces so much, but I have a fair amount of dealings with Canadians from BC, and they're very similar to Northwestern people. I think we're kindreds in many ways. We share the same environment, we share the same love of the Douglas fir tree, and you know, just the lifestyle and the mountains and the rivers and the best place in the world. Someone asked me today in a comment, what's your favorite place to visit? What's your favorite place you've ever been? And it's right here, right here. If I never traveled again or never got on an airplane, I wouldn't care about that whatsoever. I love here. That's why we chose to live here. You know, be deliberate about your life. You can change your environment. You know, people, when I was sharing this morning that it was around the fire, you know, had a fire this morning because it was 50 degrees and cold. People were sharing with how they're suffering in the heat and humidity in the south, and people were telling me how they're cooped up in a little apartment and they can't even see anything green. You know, you can change your environment, beloved. You don't have to live there. You can pick up stakes and move. It's going to be a sacrifice, but when you look at the sacrifice that my grandparents made, that's why it's so important to hear and to hear those family stories and to know where you came from. Because when I think about any time that I was struggling in the past or having a hard time or a hard go of it, I never felt sorry for myself. My granddad's stories and the courage that he showed when the family picked up stakes in Oklahoma and loaded all of their possessions onto 2 vehicles. And the boys had to help even push the cars over the Rockies or the steep parts because the engine wasn't powerful enough because they had so much gear and equipment on there. And they lived in tents in the snow in Sun Valley, and they overcame that. And he went to war and showed great bravery there and honored himself and honored my family and was the best and most honest man I ever knew. And I am that legacy. I carry on the family name. I carry on that, you know, and when I have to make decisions sometimes in my life, it's sometimes based off of what would my granddad think about this? Would this honor him? Would he be proud of me? Or would he be ashamed of me? I've done things in the past that he would have been ashamed of, that I would be mortified if he were to find out about it. But now that I get older, it's important to know where I came from. And I carry on those stories and I share them with my son, where he came from and how they traveled over the Rockies and how they lived in tents. And I share them with you and I honor him and I honor the good life that he left. And I hope that that my son will do the same for me. This is what they're trying to take away from you, beloved. If you don't know where you came from and who you are, what do you have? And if you don't have that, then it's time for you to establish that yourself. Become a man of honor and start building your own renown. Draw a line and say, enough. I'm done with being ordinary. I'm done being a slob and lazy and just a good-for-nothing, selfish prick. I'm going to start doing better. I'm going to give my heart to Jesus. I'm going to make the commandments of God my creed, and I'm going to follow them to the best of my ability. When I fall down, I'll get back up and I'll seek forgiveness and I'll ask Him to help me to overcome the things that have kept me down. Fight. Fight for something. Oh, Wim Hof says to submerge hands and feet only a few minutes, then total body submersion. Okay, well, we're going to try the gripping and we'll see how it goes. We have a member message from our friend Mr. Kyle B. Welcome, Kyle. Good to see you. Kyle writes, and Kyle's been with us almost 2 years now as a member. If you ever want to get the wall tent running again, would you consider walking us through an off-grid solar setup? I will do that, yeah. I will do that. I'm going to be, so we're going to be, I don't think I finished the story. So what I did is I found the tent that I wanted. There was only 2 brands that I would consider buying. There may be others, but this is just mine. I would either buy a tent built by White Duck, or I would buy a tent built by Canvas Cabin in Montana. I know those guys. My granddad, he bought a Canvas Cabin tent when I was a boy, and that's what we stayed in and hunted in, and it's a very good quality tent, and they still make them today. So I called them actually last week. I called them and said, you know, this is kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's about 12 by 14, 12 by 16, 14 by 16, and I want a stove jack. I want 5-foot sides. I want the traditional elk hunting tent, you know, the 4-season tent. And they said, I asked them the lead time, they said 6 to 8 weeks. Like, I don't want to wait 6 to 8 weeks. I want it now. There's things we want to get going and do. So I jumped on the other company that I would consider would be White Duck. I had one last year, I guess, or was it 2 years ago, and that was very excellent quality as well. I would say comparable, just as good. Comparable, for sure. So I went online and on Facebook Marketplace, and I found one in Boise. Someone had bought it last year, I believe, and they'd used it. They'd had it put up for 4 weeks. And it must have been for an event or something. They never really used it. They just set it up one time, and they even set it up on a ground tarp, and they put the fly over it, so it wasn't even exposed to the sun. So it's in mint condition. And it's 14 by 16 with the windows and the stove jack and all the things that I wanted. It was perfect. And it was quite a bit less, you know, saved probably $1,000 or so off of the retail price, but it was in Boise, which is a long ways from here. So I sent a message and I said, I'll be willing to give you your asking price if you'd be willing to deliver it. And I gave an address, and she responded back, if you cover our gas, we'll deliver it. So $100, they said $100 for delivery from Boise to here, which is a long ways away. So I told them, absolutely, I'll give you $100 more than you're asking, you deliver it and we're good. So I PayPal'd them a deposit, and they're supposed to be here Monday with it. So that's gonna be very exciting. Brian is we're gonna get him kind of a small his blacksmith stuff set up. He's got it over here on the table, but you don't wanna be out in the sun doing that, it's hot work. So we're going to kind of get him set up there, and he's going to start doing a little bit of knife making. And then I'm going to bring my saw filing vise and bench down here for my crosscut saws, and I'm going to work down here and do a little bit of that. And I'll shoot the content about that. And we'll show you videos of setting it up, how to set it up. This one has an internal frame, and when I was elk hunting, we had both. The first tents before Granddad bought a Canvas Cabin, he had were the old green military tents that he got surplus from World War II, and they did not have an internal frame. And I do not like well, it's not true. I don't like a green tent because it's so dark inside. and it's really dark. Even in the daytime, you have to have a lantern because the military ones were so thick. At nighttime, they're good, you know, because they're thick and they're warm and they're very dark and you can sleep, especially if you're up in Alaska. If you go in a bush plane, a dark plane's nice. A dark tent is nice for that. But I don't like it just for that reason. I don't like having to run a lantern all the time, where a white tent is very cheery and you have that beautiful, beautiful diffused light. It's amazing. It's going to be amazing to video in. Someone who is really into light like I am, that's going to solve a lot of problems for me, because the sun and I do battle out here all day long because it's difficult and horrible dealing with direct sunlight. Now I know filmmakers don't like sun. It's a difficult thing to work around. So there's going to be an opportunity to set these tents up and to show the whole thing, and you guys will kind of, some of you will probably be seeing this for the first time. We'll do the wood stove, I'll show you about the jack, how to take care of it, how to stake them down. There's a lot of stuff we can do, and then we can do soft filing and stuff in there. It's going to be very nice to have a place to kind of put stuff in at night and keep out of the dew. But it's going to be fun. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. I know I am. My experience with YouTube videos and content is, if the content creator is happy and excited about what he's doing and enthusiastic, everyone has a good time, you know, because it's fun to watch someone that's enthusiastic about something, even if you're not into it. I think that's one of the greatest things about YouTube. Mr. Cameron Wilson, thank you, brother. Goodness, a $20 super chat is very, very generous of you. We sure do appreciate that. Cameron writes, best channel on YouTube. Thank you for all you do, Cody. It's much appreciated. Well, I sure do appreciate that. Thank you. Don't know if I agree, but I do appreciate that. I'm glad you think so. Long as we're having a good time out here, right? We have a super chat from Jehovah's Thickness. That is somewhat irreverent, but I do know from my study of the scriptures that the Almighty, and I don't mean to be irreverent here, but the Almighty does have a sense of humor. There's no question about it. I think he appreciates a good joke. You know, we're made in his image. Everything that we are and everything that we enjoy being creative. We enjoy having friendships and love for one another. We enjoy music. We enjoy a good story, and we enjoy laughter. Laughter is the best medicine, don't they tell us that? These things were given to us from the Creator himself. These are things that break up the mundane things of life. I'll tell you, as someone that, as a former firefighter and first responder, I did it professionally, and a big part of our job, the bulk of our calls were medical calls. And we had an interstate that we ran a lot of really horrific car accidents on. Fatalities, decapitations, all sorts of horrible things. Children. Something that takes place in the fire engine when you leave the call is the, what do they call it? The morbid humor, or the gallows humor. You've heard of this term before? Some of the things that we would say and talk about at the fire station and in the engine, we used to joke, you know how you have the headsets on and it's a closed inside the cab, because the apparatus is so noisy, so you can listen to one another. We used to joke, if the chief heard some of the things that we were talking about after these calls, we would all be fired. You know, if it ever got out into public, you know, some of the things that firefighters, cops, even soldiers say, that gallows humor. I felt bad, you know, I kind of feel bad some of the things you'd say about what you'd seen, but now I understand it, that that's a coping mechanism. And that humor, making light of a terrible situation, of something that's even hard, it's hard to wrap your head around, going into the forest and searching with a flashlight at night for a head when it's got a helmet on it. You know, you got to go pick that up. We'd have guys on Harleys, boomers, get up there on Harleys and blow a corner, go out into the woods, and low-hanging branch would take their head off. You got to go find that, deal with that, right? That's some pretty horrible stuff. And the coping mechanism that comes from that is that gallows humor, that it's so horrible that the only way that you can make light of that and to deal with it and to process it is a little bit of humor. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's sad to see how many folks have lost their careers by being overheard by the public, and the public not understanding that this is something that needs to happen. Thank you, Cameron. That sure was generous of you. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, brother. Jehovah's thickness. Again, it is somewhat irreverent, but, well, we talked about that. Jehovah says, how do you balance being the sum of the 5 people you're around and being the person of those 5 people to be around to better themselves? I'm assuming you're talking about my family. I'm going to read that again. I don't want to miss your point. How do you balance being the sum of the 5 people you are around and being the person for those 5 people to be around to better themselves? That's a very good question that I haven't really considered before. How do I balance this? I don't know that balance is the right term. I don't know what I would be balancing. I would say maybe how would I inspire? Is that closer to maybe what you're getting at? How would I inspire them? The good book says that when a man and woman are joined together in marriage, they become one flesh. That's very interesting that God would say that. And he also says in the good book that he tells us not to be unequally yoked, meaning that if you are a devout man, a follower of the way, it's irresponsible, and God warns us, don't marry an unbeliever if you can help it. You should be equally yoked. You should be of the same mind, because what God understands that when a man and woman come together and devote their lives to one another in marriage under God, they become one flesh, and it's almost as if God sees them as one person, which is hard to get your head around. It goes on to say, let's say that you are unequally yoked. Let's say that you were an atheist or an agnostic and you married a woman that was an atheist and an agnostic like you. And halfway through the marriage, you gave your heart to Christ. You came to the true understanding of God. But your wife does not. God instructs us very clearly, don't put that woman away, or don't leave her, or don't leave that man if you're a woman and you have your husband as an unbeliever. He says something fascinating. He says that one is sanctified by the other. Now, these are very deep waters and very confusing things that I don't completely understand, but you can get the impression, and many people have, that a believing husband can sanctify an unbelieving wife. Does that mean that if he remains devout and is called and never and faithful and is considered to be saved in Christ, does that mean that he saves his wife because they're considered one flesh? I don't know. But it does point to the importance or how important God looks upon this, of this union. That's why God is so against divorce. He's so against divorce, and the scriptures are very clear that you should do everything that you can to fight for your marriage, and that this should not happen, because he doesn't see it as simply just a parting of 2 people that no longer have anything in common. But he sees that this was a bond that was made that's very important. It has very serious spiritual connotations with God. It's as if God would look at a divorce between 2 people that have been joined together as an amputation, a tearing off of a leg. That's how important it is. And we can't, oh, look at this. I have to show you something. This is something special right here. Look at this. Oh, come on now. Are these pintails? Watch. The Sweet Loaf's Bridge right here. Who can identify this duck? I'm not a big birder. There they are. Look at them go. Goodness, look at that. Look at them. Oh, I wish the baby could see that. Hope they stick around. No, we're fishing this weekend, though. Look at that. That is something else. What a blessing. Are they, I don't think, no. They're too small for mallards. They're not mallards. I used to hunt mallards. I know what a mallard looks like. They're much smaller. Yeah, maybe I can't say. I'm not the bird guy. So I want to preface that. I need to set that up. The importance of a godly couple together. Mrs. W and I are of one flesh, and we understand that without us, there is no family. So we have to really put importance upon that. We need to take care of that marriage. We need to take care of the relationship and make sure that we are strong spiritually, we're strong in our marriage, and that we have, what that means is don't lose yourself with your children. Don't make them the priority. And in so doing, it happens that the Bible tells us that a woman tears down her house with her own hands. It's very common, and there's a lot of you here that I'm sure have experienced something similar to this, that your wife doted on you and was focused her attention on you, but the moment she got children, she became a mother and just turned off and started withholding sex, and just put all of her passion, desire, and focus on her children, and is leaving her man out in the cold. Man, there's a lot of poor dudes that are struggling and going through and had gone through situations like that, and it's terrible. I think that they never really did love the man, never did really respect him. They only wanted children, and they were basically just using him as a seed to get what they wanted. Once they got what they wanted, then that was it, and now he's no longer useful. He's just a utility to provide income for her and her children. And that's a great shame. And that's a miserable, horrible way to live, I can imagine. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question, but I'm telling you that we understand this, and we protect the marriage and we protect that relationship by making sure we have time together, making sure that we take times going on dates, and building and maintaining a loving and strong marriage. And everything else flows from that. The children benefit, everything benefits from that. So I don't see it as an equal, everyone being equal in there. We kind of look at it that way. And yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this, or if I've even answered your question, I apologize. But I think that's kind of being the person for those 5 people to be around to better themselves. I think to sum it up, by Mrs. W and I having a strong and a marriage in a healthy respect for one another and admiration, it trickles down and the children see it. And that's the best thing, that's the best way, that's how you manage it. By giving them a model of Christian character, of a Christian family, and 2 people that look after and love one another, and I will never complain to my children about my wife. My wife will never complain to them about me. We are a united front. They will never be able to part us. They cannot even see us as separated, because we are one person in Christ. We have a member message from Madrix 303. Good to see you back, brother. Welcome. Madrix writes, Dillon Reservoir. Yeah, that's right. That's where I was at, Dillon Reservoir. I am there now at the Mountain House. Water is high and it's cold, at least 20 degrees cooler than Denver today. Yep, there it is. Yeah, I know that area very well. We have a member message from Mike, Handy Mike. Welcome, Mike. Mike's been with us for 56 months. Shout out to you, Mike. Thank you for being so faithful. I appreciate that. Mike is finally catching a live stream, trying to keep up. Thanks for the entertainment while driving. Yeah, you are very welcome. Thank you for supporting us and being one of the OG, the original gangsters, for sure. And Mr. Brian M. Shout out to you, Brian. Good to see Brian back. Brian says, I just booked a vacation to spend a week in BC after cruising up from San Diego. I have not been up to BC for a while. I'm very keen to go up there. I'd like to go snow biking up there. I'd love to do that. Snow biking is dangerous and scary. I'm not super geeked about going to a place that I don't know. But I would like to maybe even hire a guide. Maybe Jack and I go up there and hire a guide, or maybe maybe one of you does that. Let me know. But I love BC. It's a beautiful place. What a contrast from San Diego, huh? You're going to be so happy to be not hot. It's a good time of year to be up in BC right now. One of the prettiest places in the world. But the city is failing bad. It's terrible what's going on. What's going on in BC, if you don't know, is it's a very international city. There are a lot of Asians there. There are a lot of people from all over, but there are a lot of super rich people there. Chinese especially are using that Canadian real estate to park money. So there are big, real high-end luxury homes, condos and such that are being bought up and just sat on by international investors. And it drives up the price significantly, and it makes it unattainable for local people. It's a shame. It's a shame. Your government has sold you out. Canada, Mr. Canadian, it's sold you out. It should not be possible for foreign nationals to hold land inside the United States or to hold land inside of a country in which they don't reside, in my opinion. There's nothing good ever comes out of that. But your government, your Canadian government, and many others are not about serving you. They're about enriching themselves and their friends. They hate you, and they think that you are a plague on the planet, and they would round you up and put you in camps and control you and put you in 15-minute cities if they could. And they're trying right now to do that. Whether or not you will let them is the answer. Herodias, thank you. Herodias and her famous dance. I will share this story with you. I'm going to go and reread it, and I will tell you the story of Herodias and her evil mother, and how they were responsible for killing the greatest prophet that ever lived, according to Jesus, John the Baptist. We have a new member, Elkfish 509. Shout out to you. Welcome, brother. And Shane. Goodness, Shane's been with us for 2 months now, a brand new member. Shane has a comment. Shane enjoyed your interview with J.K. Boots. He's a nice guy, and the dad YouTube ain't bad either. He was a good dude, man, I'll tell you. I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, but I'll tell the story. I find it very difficult to go up and to do like a factory tour. I've done a few of those. I've done one with, who have we done that with? We did one with Nick's Boots back in the day, and that wasn't bad because at that time they were still a very small shop before they got as big as they are now. I did one at Gerber, which is a big factory, and I really try hard to make stuff that's going to be interesting to watch. I worry about it. And to go to a factory tour with everything that's going on, and there's so much stuff going on, where do you even start? How do you make a 10-minute video and get the point across of what's going on? I don't have a crew. I don't have a cameraman. It's all me. I got to do it by myself. Got to set up cameras, got to do all that stuff. And think about the questions you want to ask and what you want to do. And I don't have a script. I don't have anything like that. It's all in my mind. It is all that I can handle to do it. And also the constant pressure of, I want to do something good for you guys, and I want to make sure the folks that opened up, the folks up there at JK opened up their place, that they weren't disappointed. And it's poor lighting, noise. It's exceedingly difficult. I'd never seen the place either. So you walk into a factory and you've got just a few minutes to make a decision to what you're going to do and how you're going to do this. John, who you saw in the video, he started JK Boots. He's Ukrainian, and he is just like the guy that you saw, but even better. An extraordinary, devout Christian, and his family was fabulous as well. Great boys. His sons run the business, not John. John's getting older, and he comes in, but he's got grandkids. He's doing his other thing. When I was walking around there I had this idea. His youngest son, Tim, was going to walk with us and share all this stuff. I watched John in their video on their website, and I wanted to meet him. And when we met before that, I said, I'd like to meet your dad. Well, my dad's English is not very good, and he kind of feels embarrassed about that, that people are not going to understand what he has to say, and and they were trying to dissuade me from it a little bit, because they didn't want their dad to be embarrassed, and I understand that. I've never tried. I don't have a second language. I've never tried to communicate in that, but I'm sure it's difficult. And so he told me that, and I thought about it for a minute, and I said no. I said I want to meet John. I'm going to insist upon that. And I had to even be very blunt with Tim, and I've got nothing wrong with Tim, but he's a 20-something. He's not John. He didn't start the company. Even though he knows every aspect of it, every facet of it, he's not John. And when they were pressing me out a little bit, I just said, Tim, to be honest with you, I don't think, and not so many words, and I was very direct, more direct than I should have been. Tim, I don't think you're the guy for this. I think you talk too much. I want to talk to your dad. I want to do it with your dad. Mrs. W is looking at me like she was shocked I said that. And I would never have said that a few years ago, but I'll tell you, after COVID, I just don't mince words anymore. I say it like I think. And if it hurts feelings, I'm sorry, but it was important for me to tell John's story. And without John, I just couldn't do it. It had to be John. It was John or nothing. And we went outside, and I was setting up, getting microphone, getting set up the camera and all of that. And Mrs. W came up and privately and said, I think you need to apologize to Tim for what you said. I think you hurt his feelings. And now I'm in the thick of it. Like, my mind is just going. I'm miking up. I'm thinking in my head what I want to say. I haven't met John yet. None of this. And then she drops this on me. She's my better half. She's my conscience. When I go too far and I cross the line, she's always there to keep me honest, that I don't. Because to me it was business. This is business. I've got a couple hours to do this. You're standing in my way for what I want to do. You're not getting the hint. I want to talk to John. I felt like I had to do it, and I was more blunt than I should have done. I ended up apologizing to him. But anyway, that was a great interview, and it was the best that I could do. Could it have been better? Could it have been more polished? Could I roll B-roll and stuff in there? Yes, but I just want you to understand what I was up against. But that was an amazing man, and I hope that came through. What I wanted to get across to you, yes, the boots are important. How they make stuff is important, but that was not the story that I wanted to tell. And when I got back and I did the first edit on that, I shared it with Mrs. W. I said, what do you think? She didn't like it. She's like, no, this is not your best stuff. You didn't do any B-roll. You didn't put this in, put that. And we had a we went back and forth on this quite a bit. I was defending my position, but then she got me second guessing what I was doing there. And like, was I being lazy? Was I just trying to get something out? And I kept thinking, like, no, I wasn't. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get people to tell John's story the best I can. I only have a little bit of time. I don't have a film crew. Again, I don't want to come off like I produced some great thing. I just wanted people to get to know John, so that when you buy boots, you know where they're coming from, and a little bit about that family. Yeah, you can go in and find out the quality and how they're put together. That's already been done. That wasn't my interest. But what a great family. Shane goes on to say, I'm in my late 40s, and it's nice to learn that there are so many young men watching this channel. They are in the right place. It is. It is. And it's important for us. I'll tell you, it's important for us old people, us old boomers, to be plugged in to the energy of young people. Having an 18-year-old son, having a 5.5-year-old daughter keeps me a lot younger. If I was an empty nester, I would not be able to be relatable I would not understand the struggles. I wouldn't understand what's going on, what you guys are thinking about. I'm talking to you Zoomers, 14, 15, 18, 21. You know, I get it. I understand what's going on in the dating market. I understand what your struggles are. I understand the hopelessness that comes from looking at real estate prices and how expensive things are, that, you know, why even try? I get all that. I know. I understand. I think we should not despise the youth. They have a lot, but also you young people, don't despise your elders. You have been taught that old people don't have any value, just push them away into an old folks home. Everything is about Hollywood, media is all about celebrating youth. And once you lose that, you are of no value and you need to be put out to pasture. That is not the way a civilization can thrive. You need to have access. You need to hear what I'm saying and older men that have done it. We have so much to show you and to teach you that will make your life easier. Why would you want to go and reinvent the wheel? Why would you want to go out and get your nose bloodied and have to learn all these hard lessons that we have bought with blood and money when we can share that with you? And why would we just grow old and just think, oh, the lost youth and this? No, they remind us that to love and to enjoy life and to not just focus on work and to be so serious all the time. We need one another. I had that in the elk camps growing up. I was so fortunate, gentlemen. I just didn't see it at the time. So fortunate to grow up in that environment where 2 weeks or 4 weeks a year to go up into the wilderness with men only, staying in tents and hunting together and eating together and sleeping together in the tents, you know, no homo, and working together for a common goal, and hearing the stories of the old men hunting and the time a bear attacked, and it was a wonderful experience to go down and shoot elk in the bottom of Hell's Canyon, and you'd be down there with a group of 6, 7, 8 guys, and the old men out there, the experienced men, pulling out their butcher knives to start skinning and butchering and packing up elk packs for the young men because they were so much younger and stronger, and we were running packs up and down, and it was an amazing experience that most of you have never had before. And I'm sorry that you didn't, because it's the greatest thing in life. It really is. If we could get into an environment where we could recreate that in some way, that's really an amazing thing. Thank you, Shane. Mr. Keith Helgeson, a good Nordic name. Shout out to you. Thank you for your generosity. Keith writes, hello from Minnesota. We love our friends up in Minnesota, do we not? Shout out to Minnesota. Mr. Wranglerstar, I have 2 quick questions. All right, number 1, as a chef, I've always wondered, what is your favorite preparation for steak? Well, I eat steak almost every day. And my favorite preparation, we use a sous vide. Am I pronouncing that right? I hope to. My dad turned me on to the sous vide years ago. A sous vide, if you don't know, is hot water immersion. So you take your cut of steak and you put it in a Ziploc bag and you put it in water. And a sous vide is basically, it's a heater and a circulator. It looks like an immersion blender kind of, and you have a big stock pot. It's full of water. You put your steaks in there. Sometimes you have to weight them down with a meat tenderizer or something heavy because they'll float up to the top. You want them completely submerged, and you submerge them into the water. Now, you know that a medium rare steak or a medium, that's determined by a temperature of the core of the meat. So 120, 130, whatever it is, you can dial it in to exactly what you like. I like medium rare, depending on the cut, but for most parts, usually medium rare. So there is no overcooking. It's perfect every single time. It is the way to cook meat, in my opinion. So we put it in there, we cook our steaks in there, and what's nice about that is you don't have the timing problem. So you can do it, they can sit in there for a couple hours, no problem, and they won't overcook because the temperature has been set right at what you want. And they'll just be medium or medium rare all day long, for as long as you need. And then here's what you do. Now, when you're going to pull them out of the sous vide, they're going to have a disgusting cadaverous gray look, and they don't look very edible. you can't, I don't want to eat a steak that doesn't have a sear on it. And so what I do is I pull them out, medium rare. Now I've got the grill outside and I got it hot. All 3 burners on, like burning hot, hot as it'll get, you know, 600-700 degrees, whatever. I take those guys and I throw them on the grill about 30 to 60 seconds per side, and I flip it, get those seared marks on there. You know, it's, you know, like at the steakhouse. Pull them off, let them sit 10 minutes or so, let them cool down, and I'll tell you what, gentlemen, you will have a steak dinner like you never had before. Even lower qualities of cut are much better, in my opinion, when they're sous vide. It's the way to go. It's the way to go. So that's the way I like my steaks. Second question. And do you have any woodworking projects on the horizon? I actually do have one that I'm getting ready to put together. I love Pendleton blankets. I have one within reach all the time. The Warband, I bring them down. You know, we've been pretty cold. It was funny yesterday. When we came out of the water, because we've been getting up so much earlier. It's cold, man. It's hard to come out of 40-degree water into 50-degree air. And I got my Pendleton blankets. I'm all wrapped up in those because we go into our Wim Hof breathing right after that. And it's hard, you cannot concentrate on your Wim Hof when you're shivering and you're super, super cold. You're just fighting for your life, and it's hard to focus and to really get relaxed and get into that meditative state. So I'm all wrapped up with blankets. I'll tell you, guess who showed up with blankets this morning? And it was the Warband. We all had blankets, right? So we're doing that. So something I've wanted to do is I want to build a blanket ladder, because I have so many. I've got 3 or 4 Pendletons, and I like to air them out, you know, because you can't. These are 100% wool. You don't wash these. So one thing with my denim or blankets, I rarely wash this. I'll wash this shirt maybe once a week, and that's if I wear it every day, but I hand wash it in pure water. I'm gonna be washing it down here in the river soon and hang it up. There's something special about hanging your clothing up to dry in a pine tree. The people are gonna think I'm crazy, but I think that, I don't know if it's spores or just the smell. There's just something healthy about nature. I just feel better wearing clothes. It's more enjoyable to put on a crispy shirt that's been hung in a pine tree and dried naturally from fresh river water than put in, and I don't use any detergent or anything like that. Mrs. W washes none of my clothing. Now, when I got rid of all that other stuff, that synthetic stuff, and just went to pure raw denim and Ironheart, my whole wardrobe is almost exclusively Ironheart. It's small but high quality. I handle everything. No one touches my clothing. I wash everything by hand when it needs it, and rarely. So what I want to do is I want to build an old Indian blanket ladder. That's the next project I'm going to do. And so it leans up against the wall. It has crossbars. It looks like a ladder, all made the old way. And then you drape your blankets on it, usually 4 or 5. And it can lean against the wall. It could be outside, and it lets those blankets hang. It's an easy way to store them, and they get the fresh air and all that. So that's my next project. But right now, I'm doing a lot of crosscut saw. I'm doing crosscut saw stuff. So outside of that, I don't think that far ahead. So that's really what I have going on. But thank you, Keith. I'd be interested to know what you think, Keith, of the sous vide, if that's something that you use. But we love it. We absolutely love it. And they're affordable now. When they first came out, they were using them at all those posh restaurants. They were super expensive, but they're affordable now. Sous vide steak. Mr. Joe, we have a super chat. He says, do you use weapon mounted lights? Why or not? I don't own a firearm without it. The only firearm that when we're talking about defensive type of things, the only thing that I own without a light on it is my G26 Gen 3, and the only reason that doesn't have a light on it because it does not have a rail. It's essential. I think it's foolish to have a nightstand, how do we put it, cordless hole puncher without a light on it. Do you want to be fumbling out? When you have to investigate something, when someone wakes you up in the middle of the night, it's hard to get your wits about you. You want to eliminate complexities. Beloved, you should get in the habit of, when you go to bed at night, have a system where everything is consistent. Think about muscle memory. We talk about that all the time. Your phone, have it charging. Have your cordless hole puncher in the same spot, whether it be on the drawer, however you do it, whatever works for you. But also have a change of clothing, have your clothing laid out there too, and not thrown on the floor like an East Coast man. You know, have some suitable footwear. You know, I wear tactical clogs. I think, well, for my lifestyle, this is the best thing in the world right here. Now, I'm warning you, if you don't have cat reflexes, I would not recommend these things on uneven ground, because they are very tall and they're rolly. They roll. They're not designed, they're designed for people. These are popular with nurses, doctors, and waiters and waitresses. People who are on their feet and standing on concrete all the time. They're very good for that. They're Danish, they're very high quality, and I absolutely love them. I must have 7 pair of them. I go through a pair a year. I like them because I can slip them on, and I'm in barefoot all the time. So only time I'm gonna put these on is when I have to walk across the hot asphalt or go into town, but I love not having to lace something up and just to slip into it. It is absolutely fabulous, it's awesome. What was I talking about? A weapons mount. So this is a good shoe for something like that. You don't have to tie. Maybe if you have a house slipper, it's not a bad idea to have a house slipper that, and also they're all leather, which is good too. It's not a bad idea to have a house slipper and get something with a rubber sole on it so that you can go outside if you need to and you can have traction. Don't underestimate the importance of good footwear if you have to go out and fight for your life. You do not want to be barefoot. You do not want to be in something clumsy that's not going to support you. Be in something that you can get on fast, put on fast, and you can be somewhat athletic in. Now, if you have cat-like reflexes like Proho does, I can get after it with my Dansko clogs because I've wore them for so long. Have a robe or a pair of pants or something you can put on and just have that there. But the light is important. You do not want to be fiddling with multiple things. You don't want to separate tools. If you can combine something into one, or you grab and go one package, that's where it's at. So again, threats are oftentimes going to come at night. You do not want to be out there in the dark. There's nothing more terrifying. The night is dark and full of terrors, right? You want to have a flashlight. And that, having a light on, especially as bright as some of the modern LEDs are, that's a deterrent in itself. It could be, and hopefully, you never have to use that or ever have to hurt anyone. I wouldn't want that. I definitely would never want to do that. A light can be intimidating as well. So I would say that any personal firearm that you have must absolutely have a light on it. My concealed carry has a light on it now. I've adjusted my holsters so that they accommodate that. Short of the 26. If I am carrying the 26 and it's in the evening time, then I will take a Surefire backup pocket light. But it's not my preference. I would much rather have a Mark 18 with a mod light on it, or a G19X with a 300X on it. A good question. Thank you, Joe. And Mr. Wild Weasel. Shout out to you, brother. Wild Weasel writes, "You pointed me towards Christ in a way I respect. Thank you. My daughter and I read Bible stories together, and I taught myself and her how to work it. God bless." Man, that's an encouraging thing to hear. That's an encouraging thing to hear. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with any man that has the cheek to get up in front of God's people and to attempt to try to teach them or to share the gospel. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And it is not lost on me. To hear that is very encouraging to me. Very, very encouraging. Thank you for taking the time to share that with me. I really do appreciate it. Goodness, we have a super chat from Steven Richards, $20. Goodness, thank you, brother. He says, ACAB. Thank you for the definition below the middleman there. I was struggling with that. I had not heard that before, but I would agree 100%. It's an acronym used as a political slogan associated with people who are opposed. Okay, yeah, well, I can get behind that. Yeah, I need that on a hat. You know, this is going to bite me in the butt one of these days. I'm going to get pulled over by someone who knows my stance, and they're going to get up all tirade on me. Might have to get to the point where I'll have to get someone just to drive me around, so I don't have to run the risk of getting pulled over. Mrs. W be driving me around. She'd probably prefer to drive me around anyway, as slow as I drive. I told you that when we're in a hurry, I'll go outside and she's in the driver's seat. That tells you all you need to know, right? I don't get in here. Where you got to go? Why you got to put your family at risk, put yourself at risk, be all stressed out, passing cars? Why? Just pull into the slow lane. You burn less gas, less wear and tear on your rigs. Where are you going in such a hurry? That's one of the best things about, I have not stopped thinking about my buddy the other day telling me one of the benefits of being barefoot is it forces you to slow down. Because when you have big, heavy, clunky boots on, if you run up on something and kick it, there's no consequences. But I'll tell you, there's consequences when you're barefoot, especially when your toes are cold. So it causes you to be more deliberate, to slow down. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if that wasn't God's plan. For me, anyway. And we have a brand new member, Mr. Chad Smith. Welcome. Welcome. Well, that's it, gentlemen. If you guys don't have anything more, then we'll end the stream. I can't tell if I'm hearing trucks or light. No, it's not thunder. It must be a truck. And I'm going to get working on my crosscut saws. Crosscut saws, restoring them is a slow and painful process. One thing you do not want to do is don't put any power equipment on them. No grinders, no buffers. It's got to be done. These things are national treasures. These things are very precious, especially when you get an Atkins or a Royal Chinook, the gold standard. If you come across one of those, you need to restore it properly. And I've got videos on that in the past, but I'll do some more. We have a lot of people that haven't seen this before. It needs to be done with a stone, a hand stone, a flat sharpening stone is how it's done with diesel. And it's just a slow process, back and forth, just working out all the pits if it's rusted deep or the surface rust, and stay away from those rakers and stay away from those teeth. Don't want to thin those out or knock that set out of them. People don't realize how difficult it is to sharpen crosscut saws. I had a bunch of dudes that said, oh yeah, I picked up a crosscut saw at a garage sale and I have that, in case I need it someday. Well, if you don't have the tools and the know-how to do that, it's not going to be of any value to you whatsoever. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm actually one of the very few people that's actually got to go to school for that. And I got lucky to do it. The Forest Service runs a school in Montana once or twice a year, and there's only about 5 or 6 slots, and I got in one a few years ago. And they maintain that tradition. The Forest Service up there maintains all of the U.S. Forest Service crosscut saws, and they're vintage. And they catalog them, and they keep them because they still use them. Smoke jumpers still jump with them in wilderness areas. They bend them around the boxes that they throw out of the planes. Trail cutting crews still use them. They're 100% relevant, and they have a whole facility, and they've maintained the skill and the tradition to sharpen those things. And it's very, 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 very difficult to do and hard to learn. And it requires very special tools that are no longer made, and you have to go and find them. And that's one of the most difficult things to do, is to put together the saw filing tools. It took me years, and I had contacts. It took me years to put them together, just the tools. So I'll share all that with you. We're in the process of doing that once we get the tent up. It's absolutely fascinating. We have a super chat, or a new member, Fear God. Welcome, thank you. Good to have you here, we sure appreciate that. And Mr. Jason Barr, we have a super chat. Jason writes, he's got a question. PSA, I found out that cops do not like to be asked if they are enjoying, if they're being a tyrant. Well, they don't like you. They don't like you. They don't see you as being an equal. They see you as being the enemy. And do you think that the tyrant wants to be questioned? He has supreme authority. He has complete impunity. He can kill you, and he'll never pay consequences for that. He has, what do they call it? What's the immunity that they have? I'll tell you what, many of them would start acting right if they had to pay the penalty for falsely shooting someone or abusing someone. It would be an entirely different thing. Qualified immunity. We need to strip cops of qualified immunity, and that would solve a multitude of problems. End qualified immunity. Yeah, no, they don't like being called tyrants, but that's what they are, many of them. And the ones that are not, the fact that they allow tyrants to exist and they work next to them, they're complicit. We have a super chat from Superheat. Welcome, shout out to you, Superheat. He said, do you load your own ammo? If not, you should really consider it. No, and I'm not going to. I can't take on any more hobbies. You know, beloved, in the past, a man would have a trade. He was a blacksmith, or he was an armorer, or he was a farmer, or he's a carpenter. But he didn't try to do all those things. It's unrealistic to take on too many things. You end up not being able to do anything well at all. We have reloaders in the warband. My friend Brian, he takes that. I have abilities. I can sharpen crosscut saws. I can do tool handles and some basic carpentry stuff. I know how to build a house. I can run equipment. I have a skill set. He has a skill set. I'm not gonna get into that. I have other things that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rely on him doing that. So we'll help one another. It's gonna have to get to that in the communities where you're gonna have to have a division of labor. We like to think that we can be an island in the stream and our own man, and we can be the Sigma male and we can do everything, and that's unrealistic. We need to specialize. We need to have people in our community, in our group, that does that and delegate that to them. You do something of value, they do something of value, and it'll be bartering and trading. That's what it's going to come down to. That's what we really need to cultivate, and we can be much more effective that way. Mr. David Knott, good to see you, brother. Welcome. David writes, just spoke with a 94-year-old friend who buried a 90-year-old wife this week. Can you imagine the loss? He won't live very long after that. Couples that are together that long, and I don't think that they should. The loneliness. I've been with Mrs. W for 20 years, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what probably this man has experienced. And I would be, if something happened to her, for her to be taken from me, it would be a terrible loss. But at that age and that much time together, I could see, it wouldn't surprise me if a man could just will himself to die. My granddad did not live long after my grandmother died. She died before him, and they'd been married for over 75 years. Strong Christians. He says a careful observation of life brings much joy overall. God bless. I wish we could do a dual stream. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something to do a dual stream with that man and be able to glean some wisdom and experience, especially those of us who want to have strong, healthy marriages. He did it. He knows how to do it. He might know a thing or two. Well, shout out to him. 94 and 90. Man, that's rough. It's rough, but also, it's time to go home at that time. Your body's breaking down. You've ran your race. If you are safe in the bosom of Christ and you have ran a good race, as I said, and you're secure in your faith, You know, it's just time to go. Time to go and to wait. You know the amazing thing, that a man like that that's safe in Christ, if he were to die tomorrow, the Bible tells us that the dead know nothing. There's another thing that we were going to need to get into that's almost as important as the Sabbath, and that is the state of the dead. What happens to us when we die? There's a lot of bad information out there. People think that they go to heaven, and people think that they're ghosts and they haunt, or they go to purgatory. But the Bible is quite clear that the dead know nothing, and the dead rest in the earth and they wait. They wait for what? They wait for the coming of Christ. They will be arisen. Those that are saved in Christ will come up and be resurrected at the second coming. So if you were to think about that, the last moment you had on your deathbed and the lights go out, you rest in the earth, or cremated, whatever. Your race is run, you're done. You know, your next waking moment, it would be not even a twinkle, not even a second. From the time that you lose consciousness, a snap, you wake up to the resurrection, whether it be to the resurrection of the damned or the resurrection of the living. Your next conscious thought, if you're saved in Christ, will be with Jesus and ascending into the air and on your way to the kingdom. Can you imagine that? It's pretty incredible, huh? Even though King David right now lays somewhere in the tomb, and his next thought, even though he lived thousands of years ago, his next thought and the first thing that he will see is his Messiah. Incredible. Yeah, we're going to have to cover the state of the dead and the Sabbath. Those are really the two big issues, I think, the ones that are probably the most important that we could cover right now, and the most misunderstood, for sure. All right. Thank you, beloved, for your time. Thank you for hanging out with us. May God bless you and your families. Thank you to Overton and the Middlemen. For those of you, the new members, I welcome you. Those of you who've been faithful with your time and for the super chats, we sure do appreciate that. I really, really do. Please keep us in your prayers. I'll be praying for you. And Lord willing, we'll see you on tomorrow's stream.